On this episode of AV Week, we are coming to you from InfoComm 2018 in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're joined by Mike Blackman, Dave Labuscus, and so many more talking about InfoComm 2018, the experience, and what we've learned this week. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 354, recorded Friday, June 8th, 2018. InfoComm 2018, Part 1.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box, and by Christie Digital.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio, visual, news, and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host, coming to you from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. As we have done for the good Lord, the last 6 years, I guess now, we're going to wrap up the week of InfoComm 2018 by talking to an awful lot of really smart and cool people. I am not that person. I'm just going to ask them some questions. First and foremost, with me for this segment, our host for this week, Mr. David Labuscus from Avixa. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Next to him is Bradford Ben, the indispensable industry icon. I am contractually obligated to say that.
Yes, you are. Thank you very much, Mr. Albright.
Absolutely. And actually, our host while we're in Amsterdam, Mr. Mike Blackman from ISC. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And Mike bounces around all over the world, really, looking at yeah. I ask Dave you this every year at this time. You don't know the number. I know that. I have to ask you the number as a journalist, but a sense of where we're at as far as attendance.
No doubt, biggest show ever in Las Vegas. The numbers I know at this point, I mean, we literally do have people registering still at this time.
Okay.
So I'm not just being catty. Or key.
But you don't get the official numbers until the end of the show, though.
Right.
Which is 2 hours from now. So.
Yeah. Largest number of exhibitors ever, largest space ever. I know that we passed the registrations for the Las Vegas edition days ago, so biggest show ever in Vegas.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Mike, one of the reasons you come here and the other shows is to kind of get ideas and trade and you feed off of each other. What are some of the things you're going to take away from this week?
Well, I mean, firstly, you say about feeding off. ISC was created by InfoComm.
Yep.
And actually, Jason McGraw was the guy I worked with to create the first ISE, and one of the coolest dudes around, really. You know, I had times when we were panicking because a couple of his exhibitors jumped ship on the last moment. I think, oh, this is not going to happen. And he's saying, no, let's do this, let's do that. And so it happened. And the ideas we get, we come here with my team, my marketing team's here, my sales team's here. Every couple of years we bring the whole team to experience InfoComm. And that's important, you know, so that they actually understand what this business is about elsewhere. But we look at see what InfoComm's doing and say, can we use that? Yes, we can. Can we make it better? Maybe. And then Jason does the same thing back.
Yeah.
So this is a continuous evolution of ideas, and we all benefit. But the other factor as well, and you'll find here, it's not just me. There's Max Jaramillo, who runs Latin America, Richard Tan, who runs Asia. Yep. We're a family of events, and we all gain from the cohesion that we have in trying to make the best AV shows in the world, and we can only do that by sharing ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Mr. Ben, this is your first InfoComm in quite a while.
Yes, sir.
As an end user.
Yes, sir.
And just full disclosure, Bradford is on our board. You went from working for Harman, who's one of our underwriters, and now you work for an end user.
Correct.
So how was your experience for the first time in a couple of decades as an end user?
Notice I am not wearing a tie.
I do notice that,
not
yes.
even a button-down shirt.
If you look back at previous episodes of this specific week, you have a tie and suit on.
And it's always a Star Wars tie.
Yes.
To me, it's actually been very surprising to see how much I've not known about because I was so focused on Harman and audio products. So seeing all the things that have changed has been eye-opening. The other thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people at the show don't know how to deal with an end user, especially a technical end user. I know.
Okay, wait, hang on for a second, because I want to hone in on that. One thing that the AVIXA team and InfoComm team and actually the ISE team has worked really hard on is getting more end users here. Feedback you're giving is that the exhibitors don't still know some of them.
It's not just an InfoComm thing. It happens at every trade show, but this is my first time experiencing it.
Dave and Michael, have you weigh on what you guys are the most excited about what happened this week? You know, somebody you met or maybe an event you went to. What was your most exciting part of this week?
The awards ceremony.
Okay.
And I think I can sort of put a couple layers of why I was so excited about that. One, it was at our center stage, which was
second year for that.
Yeah, and it really was a center stage. I mean, the quality of content across the entire show that was there is a gem that I really hope more people find out about and look at for next year. It was astounding. So the fact that we have this stage in the center of the trade show floor, and yet it has an opportunity to become a place of community was amazing. The fact that it was a place of community is so meaningful to me as an association. The exhibitors and the attendees that come together here are a physical manifestation of a marketplace that is filled with passion and celebration of experience. And the celebration itself of the individuals that won those awards is really, the whole award program is designed not only to recognize the achievements of those individuals, but to inspire those who follow them. And in particular this year, one of our winners was Scott Scher, and he wasn't able to be present, and the way that he delivered his message through his wife, if anybody left that ceremony without being touched and without being inspired for the future, I don't understand them. Yeah. It was an amazing hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, what was one or two things that kind of hit you this week?
Well, I have to reflect on what Dave says about the centre stage, and it's one of the things that I actually put on my agenda to look at, because we're copying.
Yeah. Borrowing.
Sorry.
We innovate together.
Yeah. Collaborating.
Collaborative
space.
It's a family.
So we're going to be doing the same thing because we see it works. And I wanted to look at that again and see how do we things that we're going to take from here and put into how we manage it. Design's going to be different. Of course, our design's going to be better.
You're asking us. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please.
I mean, you're asking us to pick which of our children we love the most.
Yes,
right?
but we all have favorite children.
I don't.
It's easier for me to walk around here and find stuff. I'm still looking for Hall 7 from February.
Hang on. If you've never been to ISE at the Rye, there are now 15 halls, which is what Bradford is referring to. There are several halls to find.
I must admit, navigation, it's easy for me because I spend so much time in that building that you could put a blindfold on, I know where I'm going. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard for me to put myself in the space, in your position, and say, how do I get from A to B? And I can remember the first time I was asked the question by an exhibitor who'd been with us for 4 years, said, I'm trying to get back to my booth. I'm saying, well, you must know the way. And so we started really looking at stuff like that, and we haven't got it completely right yet. We've done a lot of evolution on our signage and changing things to try and make it different. But the problem is also when we grow and put another hall on, the map changes.
It does tend to do that, yes.
Well, there's also another thing, a little bit of inside pool, but from my former manufacturing days, the manufacturers also want to stay in the same place so they're findable. And that's what was requested. But then the spaces around them change and the halls change, so they might not be commingled as well as they are here.
And sometimes, Bradford, to that point, sometimes their neighbors change, right? Yes. Because sometimes their neighbors want to move neighborhoods, to continue that analogy. As we wrap up here, Dave, I want to end with you on this. This is your first North American show as a AVIXA putting on InfoComm.
Yeah.
How has that transition gone?
I think this show is the beginning of a completely new era. The energy level that went through here, I mean, from the DJ as you walk through the doors and enter the building, to the opening reception that just blew everybody away, to Tide, to Center Stage, to the Innovations Pavilion, and there's a trade show is made up of a million different little details that all come together, and people like Mike and Jason, they know and understand all of those details, and they put them together and they come out with a Michelin 5-star meal that we call InfoComm 18. I am filled with anticipation about what InfoComm 19 is going to be like, and if we look at anything about the trajectory that this show is on, it's just going to blow Orlando away.
All right, very good. I'd like to thank all three of you. Mr. Mike Blackman, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
How do people find you or ISE?
So I'm at mblackman@iseurope.org, or ISE Mike, or ISE_Mike.
ISE_Mike, yeah.
Yeah, at Twitter. And just Google me.
All right, very good. Mr. Ben, how do people find you, sir?
I'm going to go with Mr. Blackman's answer.
That's
Just
fine.
Google me.
All right, very good. And Mr. Labuscus, thank you, sir.
At David Labuscus.
All right, and
thank you, sir.
.org. So. All right, in our next segment, first up and foremost, the marketing guy here at AVNation. His name is Matt Scott. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. How are you?
Awesome. Also next to him is Steve Greenblatt from Control Concepts and also the host of our fabulous State of Control show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Good, good. And a young man who, first and foremost, is a part of the SEN The 9. Met him at Digital Signage Expo this year. His name is Emil, and I'm going to ask you to pronounce your last name.
Van de Koevering.
Thank you very much, sir. Just be referring to it as
You can Google
Emil.
that.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. So I've actually met Emil at DSE. Emil is a digital artist, is what I would refer to you.
Yeah, that
Fair?
describes it well, yeah.
You're in charge of a lot of the digital signage here in Vegas.
Correct.
You have an interesting background we don't have time to go through.
No, it's a long story.
But at one point in your life, you were the artistic director of American Idol.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so you're doing all this stuff in the digital signage realm. What was your experience like coming here to InfoComm as somebody from the digital signage world and the digital arts world, coming here for and experiencing this?
I mean, first and foremost, I loved it. One of the things that I like very much when going to trade shows or conventions like this is I always kind of am the in between that tries to connect the technology with the art and try to come up with some weird and crazy stuff. Yeah. And I like to kind of be the disruptor in the whole gang. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to see all these different companies and all these different companies that we worked with as well, showing their products and showing their stuff. And I always, like, my brain always goes very creative and like, okay, how can I connect these things together? How can I have these people work together? Yeah. And yeah, that's basically it.
All right, how I can take all these disparate systems and make them.
Yeah, yeah. Like I did a talk as well, and one of the main things that I mentioned is that all these technology companies and these AV companies, when you're having a booth here, maybe also take a look at each other and maybe don't treat each other necessarily as competitors or rivals, but just look at each other's technology and not copy or borrow, but work together and partner up, and maybe you can create something very, very, very creative that's completely new. Yeah. And for me, that's the type of things that I'm very excited about.
Very cool. Mr. Greenblatt, not only did you help us out and interview some of our folks, but you also obviously got to run the show floor. So what are one or two things that you're picking out from InfoComm this year?
So one of the big differences is that last year, at least from my perspective, so I'm keying in on where does my company fit in, and what are the trends with regard to control programming and
I was going to say, real quickly, Control Concept is an independent programming house for control systems.
So last year we talked about no programming required. That was all over the show floor, not this year.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Do you think it's reverting back because of backlash, or why do you think that not
sure
so much?
Backlash, but maybe we just kind of got over that hump. But there was a lot more about APIs this year, which means how does a particular piece of software or platform integrate with another particular software or platform. Yeah. We also talked about monitoring a lot more, which I think, of course, is a big conversation, and it's been for a while, but monitoring data and really trying to now draw conclusions from the usage of equipment. And I think that the last thing is that we're finally seeing the adoption of standardized or mainstream programming languages, and I think that a lot of the control manufacturers and others are moving in that direction, and maybe there's pressure from the outside because of it. But we've been talking about this for a really long time, but I think finally we're seeing it come to a head.
Yeah, actually, Steve just did, I think your last episode that posts sometime in June, did an episode just on that, on more standardized programming languages. So, Mr. Scott.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I want to pick your brain a little bit because Matt is the host of our residential show, AVWeek, member of the CDO board, residential dealer up in London, Ontario. InfoComm, the show, started something new this year called the Integrated Life.
They did.
Not just a day-long session, but also they had a special area of the show floor that had Integrated Life. You had Google there, you had Amazon, you had Microsoft in that section. A lot of folks that you and I have seen at CEDIA were on this show floor. So as a resi dealer, and you also do commercial as well, but also as a residential dealer, what was your experience going through this, from both sides?
It's always an interesting experience because a lot of the manufacturers that we work with on both sides play both sides. They're involved in both industries. The Integrated Life experience had a lot of really good talks, and it focused primarily on the privacy and security side of things, which are a very big deal. And it's something that a lot of your commercial houses are more versed in than the residential dealers. So that was very interesting. The other section on the floor, that was a weird one for me because they had a lot of residential products there, but Google was there and mainly showing things like Jamboard. Microsoft was there, not really showing anything that was overly, there was no Cortina, there was not a lot of those things that you'd expect to see. So I think a lot of it is just the commercial community realizing, maybe finally, that residential brings a lot of design and aesthetics that occasionally are lacking on the commercial side, and they bring that into the environment. And to some of the points that were made earlier, we're seeing a lot of that convergence of design and how is this actually going to work in a space. And for a long time, that wasn't so much the focus. It was more focused on the function of these spaces versus the design and the aesthetics of the spaces. And that's something that they seem to be pulling very heavily from residential.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to key on something that Steve was talking about. He was talking about the monitoring and data analytics that we're finally being able to pull from a lot of this AV equipment. Talk for a second about how important that is in your job when it comes to either whether it's creating dynamic content based on who's in front of your display, or bringing that analytics back to be able to say, this is who consumed it, or this is what they did with the stuff that you create.
Yeah, no, another very, very great point. Like data is so powerful. It's everywhere nowadays. And the cool part of that is that you can use data for almost anything. So you can use that data to use the analytics and measure things. You can measure, you have impression counts, your dwell times, you get all these different things that you use for digital signage, AV in general, and you can use it to improve your product.
How so?
So you can see what works, but maybe even more importantly, you can also see what not works, what fails. And I think as a business, and perhaps as a person as well, everybody needs to be a little bit more comfortable with failure as well, and see it as part of the process. See it part of the process where you see, what do the people want? What does the end user want? And how can we evolve? How can we evolve? And I think with what he's mentioning, the APIs, the integrations, the people working together, that's happening more and more. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Well, and at Tide, I don't know if you had a chance to attend it, but they had, one of the presenters was talking about using human analytics and literally grabbing heartbeat and all kinds of different sensors in a live event during a club or a different environment to pull and change things live on the fly based on those analytics. And that's something that is really going to progress in the short term. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, the speaker was talking about biometrics and bioanalytics, heartbeat and temperature and stuff like that. So. Steve, if you had to synopsize this week, what theme would you give InfoComm 18?
A lot more about experience, of course, and I think that was the main push to make that happen. I think that there's a little bit more of a progressive thinking. I think that we are not necessarily only in the AV industry, and we have to be thinking outside of that, and we have to be understanding how we fit into that bigger ecosystem, and letting everybody understand the role that we can play and we should step up. We should take charge of that and take that responsibility to show people what we can do to be a player and be a partner in that bigger picture.
Matt, Steve says that we're not only just in the AV industry, so what else are we in?
We are in the experience. And I asked Kirsten Nelson about this earlier today, and she said, it's not that we've never been in that, we just haven't recognized it. We've always been in the experience business. We just have not recognized that and really understood what that meant. And he's not wrong. We are in the experience business. And the faster that we recognize that, the faster that we get on board with that and realize that everything we do affects the people that are there. And we want to create the best experience for them possible to make the technology disappear. That's when we continue to progress.
All right. I mean, as we wrap up here, I want to kind of pick on you for a minute.
No problem.
Dave Labuscus was on in the first segment, and he's used what I refer to as an avatar for the last couple of years in talking about people that don't consider themselves in the AV industry, but Avixa does, right? These are digital artists. These are graphic designers who's working for an ad agency or creating digital signage experiences. They see themselves as they're artists, right? But their canvas is so technology centric that they're also in the AV industry. So, are you in the AV industry? And if so, when did you kind of come to that realization?
I definitely think that I'm in the AV industry, and I think I had that realization pretty quickly in the beginning. And I think it's actually what he said is the other way around, is that we're all in this experience industry, and the AV industry is slowly realizing that is actually what we're all in. It's where we're all, when we all work together and we all work on these experiences, is when we create better technology, better things, better products. And that's what makes me so excited that now finally it's becoming more and more normal, that hey, we're all in this all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, gentlemen, that'll wrap us up. Mr. Matt Scott, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Everything this week, sir.
Well, I'm amazing.
You are pretty amazing. How do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott, or Google me. I'm fairly easy to find.
All right, very good. Mr. Greenblatt, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
How do people find you?
Well, first, State of Control, as you mentioned, and Twitter and other social media at Steve Greenblatt, and my company, Control Concepts, at controlconcepts.net.
All right, very good. Emil, how do people find you?
Well, Googling my last name might be a little bit difficult.
I can't spell your last name, nor can I say it. So,
so I would recommend finding me on Twitter at Socialer, the company, or at Escapation, my own Twitter handle. And especially in this last week, it's been pretty active.
Yeah, I'm certain. Yeah, absolutely. Again, you can also check him out on the SCN, the 9. My name is Tim Albright. For more information about AVNation, you can go by avnation.tv. avnation.tv, you'll find programs like this and a host of others here in the next few weeks. You'll find all of our coverage of InfoComm 2018. Also, really quickly before we get out of here, I want to say a special thank you to our coordinator and my den mother this week. Her name is Liz. She's been a fabulous person to keep me wrangled. Also, our camera guys, Bill O'Donnell and Brian McKinney, George Tucker, Don Mead, Josh Rego, everybody that's helped out in Met, Scott and Steve Greenblatt, everybody that's been great. So
You too.
yeah, him too. Yeah, while you're at the website, also maybe make sure you check out our underwriter section. These are the folks who help us financially, help us go to InfoComm and bring you everything from InfoComm 2018. So all that and more at AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of AV Week.